Greetings and welcome to Direct Access MixStream. My name is JD from Studio 2105. This is MixStream episode 44, right? Haven't done this in quite a while, right? Because it's been an extremely busy period, right? During the fasting month. Okay, so I do apologize. Some of the videos have also been coming out a little bit late. The output has been a little bit slow this past month because of Ramadan. And speaking of that, next week, if you're watching this, perhaps if you're watching this later on a replay, okay, I want to wish all the viewers, all the subscribers, and patrons who's celebrating Hari Raya, okay, a very, very Selamat Hari Raya Aidil Fitri, okay. There's a whole sense of joy and happiness that's in the air that I can feel from everyone, that really positive sense that I've not felt, obviously haven't felt this in 2 years, For many folks, for many people, they could not balik kampung for Hari Raya for the past 2 years. Some of them have not seen their relatives, right, because of the various lockdowns. And, right, so hopefully, right, if you're watching this right now live, okay, or whether you're watching this later on a replay, hopefully you've been having a great Hari Raya celebration, a good time with your friends and your family, okay? But in the midst of that, all that, remember to stay safe, okay? If you're traveling home, okay? Obviously, don't drink and drive. that doesn't really make sense. But stay safe on the roads, okay? Right? Obey the speed limit, wear a seatbelt, drive carefully, okay? And have your safe journey. So anyway, without further ado, let's get down. I'm going to talk a little bit about today's featured artist. Today's featured artist comes all the way from across the causeway down south, right, to our friends and our brothers down in Singapore, and in fact down in the live chat right now, right? We've got Boss Productions, right? They are the production company and the labels who are behind today's featured artist. And the track, it says, "Hi, greetings from Singapore," and then Baron Bros Empire. Once is there. Okay, Once is the one who contacted me, right, and contacted us. Crypto Ninja says hello from Singapore. All right, Crypto Ninja. All right, that's a very, very mysterious person indeed. Okay, and of course we have Najib Zulkifli, or aka Chita. All right, he also is in the chat. Thank you for joining us, joining me in this live chat, man. This is going to be super interactive. Now, if you have any comments, if you have any questions, please do leave them now. I will do check them from time to time. But throughout most of the live stream, I'm going to be focusing pretty much on the mix. But from time to time, I'll check out what is in the chat. Okay, so I do apologize if I am a little bit slow in replying, right, what's happening in the chat. So without further ado, right, description about the artist, right, this track, right, is a comeback track, I would say, right, that's how I would describe it, by Chita, okay, and this is also featuring, right, the vocal abilities of Shahyr, okay, right, so super cool. One interesting about this track is that, right, Once here, right, who is the person who contacted me, and I roped into my bandmates, right, DJ Uno and AJ, who they formed, right, the team that they used to call themselves Unknown Productions. This is like 16, 15 years ago when we were doing stuff for like Rafage and doing the remix for Dayang and Ali Fikir and all those tracks that we did in the past. So it's super cool, right? I work with this team. So this beat is produced by Uno and AJ, okay? So without further ado, let's dive into the track. Before I forget, if you're new to this channel, if you're not yet a subscriber, I would appreciate if you take the time to go and click down on the subscribe button, and also to leave a like on this video as well. And one way to support the channel and also support the featured artists is to check out what I call, right, the MixStream Patreon membership. So what this does is that you can sign up to become a patron subscriber, right, from as low as $1 a month, right, going all the way to the VIP tier, which is about $10 a month. And there are a whole bunch and whole list of special perks and benefits. How do you check it out? Okay, it's up there. It's in the description, but it's also in the text that's up here as well. Okay, so check it out. The website is www.patreon.com/studio210. 05. Okay, enough of that rambling. Let's get on down with the mix itself. Okay, so first things first, what should we do when you are presented with a bunch of tracks to mix? Straight away go and solo each individual track and then straight away work on, like, say, kick track? No. First thing that you do is you want to do what I would describe it as the discovery and the framing process. You want to discover, right, what the song is all about. So this means finding out what the song structure is, what the elements are, listening to where the vocals comes in, where does the hook come in, where does the groove come from, right? Where is the main hook, be it either a vocal hook or an instrumental hook? You have to identify and all these elements, right? So how do you do that? That is by performing a rough mix, right at the start. And this is something that I've already done, right? During the prep session, I prepped everything. I've edited all the tracks and files so that everything is neat and tidy and well organized, right? So that I will mix it. So take a first listen first, a rough mix of all the parts. So what I will do is I listen to the whole thing. I will make some mental notes, right, of what needs to be done, what I feel. Maybe there's some words or certain parts where I want to add in and automate effects. I'll make mental notes, right? For some people, they prefer to take, right, with a pen and paper and actually write it down. But for me, I sort of can rely on my brain, on my memory, right? So usually I will make mental notes of what I want to do and come back to it later. So let's take a listen, right, to just the rough mix of the track. There is no compression, no nothing on anything yet. Maybe you hear a little bit of reverb on the vocals, but everything is flat, no EQ, no compression, just balances and panning. Okay, so this is the rough mix of the track, and I'll just give my commentary as we go along. So we'll start off with, right, the sample and then intro. Okay, so you have the violin sample, like the string sample. It comes in with the vocal. This is Shahyr's vocal comes with Sang Chita giving some intro ad-libs. Then the first verse.
Terungkai sang Chita keluar dari gua, meluaskan minda, melunaskan lisan kata. Jangan risah, ini tak berpisah, cuma menusuk ke dalam jiwa. Menahan nafsu di bumi yang nyata, merentasi haluan tanpa peta. Dari kegelapan alam mata, ajak ke pelosok bercahaya. Berapa ramai lagi yang harus pergi, berapa kali.
You have that cool little vocal choir chant going on. We call it Arabic vocal. This one. Okay. So this would be like the pre-chorus B section. This is where Shahyr's vocal comes back in. There's a little breakdown with a little bit of some tabla and some percussion going on. And the chorus. And the second verse kicks in. So we do a little breakdown first. It goes to do this string ostinato part. In this verse, Shahyr backs up the rap, gives it a different dynamic texture. The beat comes back in. Okay, so something a little different. We have a little gamelan that's going on here right now. Because we wanted to sort of emphasize that traditional, that ethnic element of the track. The next beat chorus. This is more like a bridge. It serves that way as a bridge. And this is pretty much Shahyr takes the lead for the rest of the song. Into the final chorus. All right, so there you have it. Okay, so that's the rough mix of the song, right? To give a entire big picture of what the entire track is all about. Okay, so next thing, first things first, and it's very typical. I will always start using with the kick drum first. But there's one thing which I want to point out, and frequent viewers of the live streams will already know what I'm going to be talking about, okay? This is about setting the initial levels and, right, setting the right gain structure. And what do I mean about setting the right gain structure? Basically, it means that when the mix is done, when you are done and you have the stereo, the two-track mix, you will want to have it at a level which is, number one, you don't want it to clip, obviously, right? Because clipping is bad, right? Digital distortion is bad. Not once it happens, it cannot be undone, and it cannot be removed, lah. So you want to have a good enough level with sufficient headroom. You don't want to clip, but also, right, neither do you want something which is too low. In that level, if the level is a bit too low, your signal to noise ratio is not going to be so good. When you reach the mastering stage, noise is going to come up. Okay, digital systems, even though they say digital systems have no noise, but it's true, digital systems technically have no noise. They do have a noise floor, but it's so low that you can't really that it's not really an issue. But systems by itself always have a noise floor, and without going into, right, a technical description of mumbo jumbo of what I'm talking about, right, just basically know that if your level is too low and you try, and when we get to the mastering stage at the end and then we bring the level up, noise floor is going to come up as well. So how do we, right, or how do I sort of arrive at the appropriate level? So it's pretty simple, actually. How I do it is with the kick drum. And what I will always do is I aim to have my kick drum peak at about minus 12 dB fs, okay? Minus 12 dB full scale. So you might not be able to see it here. Let me just pull up the master fader window, okay? All right, actually you can probably see it down here, but this is a better view. So what I want to do is I want to have the, oh, that's not the master, this is the master, okay? I will want the kick drum to peak at about minus 12 dB fs. So step one is we do that. And then step two, when I balance the mix, the entire mix of all the other tracks, when we balance to it, what you're going to end up is that the mix is going to be a nice, good, healthy level, all right? But another benefit, which obviously I don't think you can hear because it's something that only I am experiencing listening to the speakers, is that this produces a monitoring and listening level of roughly 85 dB SPL, right? Without getting into details, 85 dB is the recommended level where you listen, right? You calibrate the loudness of your monitor speakers and you mix at that volume level for the majority of the time, because, right, that is where the human hearing is the most flat. We have the best, flattest frequency response at about 85 dB SPL, okay? I'm actually doing a video on that, putting out real soon. I already shot it, haven't edited it. It's probably come out. I'll probably put it out next week, okay, to describe how I do it and a little bit more detail. So without going into that, let's go, okay? Kick drum, solo, just the kick drum first. Heavy kick. All right. Sounds just about right, right? Okay, because obviously I've already, during the rough mix, I already gain staged it. And let me bring this over and you should be able to see this. Okay, so it's peaking. Sometimes about minus 14. Yeah, and some of the heaviest hits will peak at just under minus 12, like minus 11.9 dBFS. Okay, but that is cool. That is not an issue. So That is how I set the kick drum level, and most likely I'm not going to touch it already. It's going to be there, and everything else, the snare, the vocals, the bass, or the instruments, the samples, are all going to be balanced, right, relative to this kick drum that I have right here. Okay, so I'm going to set this kick drum there. So let's dive a little bit into the kick drum. Let me pull up the channel edit window. And I want to talk a little bit about some of the things which I would do in my mixing workflow. So, I employ a lot of tape, right? Analog tape, and also analog console emulation. Why do we do that? Because a lot of our favorite records that we have, right, were recorded on analog tape and also mixed on analog consoles, and it imparts a very, very pleasing character that our ears have learned to appreciate. Well, it's fine because everything is gone towards digital, right? Nowadays we work in a fully in the box environment, right? So we are trying to, in this case, what I'm trying to do is try to bring back a little bit of that analog feel, that analog vibe and flavor into our digital mixes. It's desirable. It's something that we always associate with a lot of our favorite records. So it's a very common thing. So how do I do that now? All right, first thing, and this is actually a totally new plugin which I've been using. All right, this is called tape, right? Although I know in in the Malay language we will say this is type, right? Type, which is short for typing, right? In Bahasa Malaysia, right? So this is a plugin that's from Baby Audio. This is one of my favorite. The developers, they put out really, really cool plugins. So this is according to them, this is an AI based tape algorithm. So how it works underneath the hood, I don't know. I just know it sounds good, and I've been experimenting and trying this out. So I would use this if I want to sort of give something a little bit more character. Usually, right, most of the time I've always been using. In the past, I used to use the Studio 8A827 from Universal Audio. Most of the time, I would use Virtual Tape Machine from Slate Digital. But on a couple of mixes, I've been experimenting already. I've been using, right, this tape plugin, right, from Baby Audio. So I arrived at this little preset that I have. It's just giving it a little bit of saturation, right? Just to give it a little bit of saturation and to sort of to tame some of the peaks. That's one of the characteristics of analog tape, and this is the same thing why I'm going to apply this. Okay, so here we go. Right. Okay. One thing that it is embarking and adding, okay, is a little bit of that tape hiss. Okay, let me just check and see. Right. Is it because of this? Right. Okay, and what I mean by this is this one, because I got my assistant to go and do some editing. So over here, I think he was a little bit too over enthusiastic, and he went and chopped up every single thing. So what it causes is that that little bit of that tape white noise, that little hiss there, to sort of tail off unnaturally. But let's try it. Let's try it with this and see. Okay, it's a little smoother this time round, but maybe still a little bit too much. Let me try to bring that down. Let's bring the noise level down. There we go. So I brought this all the way down, right? I think I will want to do that because for hip hop we want to keep it clean. I want it to saturate, but I don't want that noise. Okay, it can go pretty crazy, right? Like for example, if I go all the way, all right. So in some situations, you want to do something experimental, maybe you can, but not in this case. Okay, we're gonna keep it that way. So that's tape for the tape emulation, and then it goes into virtual mix rack. where there are two plugins here, and I want to quickly point them out. First one is called Virtual Channel. This is all for obviously right in Virtual Mix Rack by Slate Digital. So this is emulating the SSL 4000G series. Well, right, I've been gravitating towards this lately. And after that, it would go into this FG73 module. So this is the preamp. It's based on the Neve 1073. And again, once again, this is something which again imparts a little bit of flavor. Generally it is generally a little clean. It adds a little bit of harmonics, a little bit of saturation to it, but it can also be cool, way of adding a little bit of drive and dirt and grit. So let's try and see what happens if I bring up the little drive, right, the virtual drive of the 1073, because it will kind of overdrive it a little bit, right? It will distort it a little bit, and we see whether we get a desirable effect or not. Okay, let's give it a try. You can hear it starting to get a little buzzier, a little fuzzier. Okay. Okay, at that very loudest peak, I think if you caught it just now, it clipped a little bit. Right, a little bit of clipping. Maybe a bit more. Not bad. Okay, this is obviously way too much, because this is already probably chopping off the top. You are hearing a little bit of that square wave of distortion already. So I don't mind it just lighting up just a little bit, because again, this is shaving off a little bit of the transients. It's adding compression. In fact, this is a form of, right, tape is a form of compression. Saturation, distortion, it's all a form of compression as well. So because I'm using this, you also find that I'm not using any compressor on this. I'm really happy. It's really giving me the shape and the dynamic envelope that I want. And I'm not a big fan of using compressors on all the individual drums, especially if I talk about acoustic drums, right? Although I will put, right, I tend to usually apply a compressor on the drum bus. Okay, right. And hey, Brian Wong is here. Brian, awesome. Thank you for joining in the live chat, right? Brian says the AI tape algorithm sounds super dope. Yep, it's very pleasing. And the cool thing about this is that it offers a lot more flexibility. Most of the normal tape emulations are quite straightforward, but here you can actually do a lot of damage to it, and what I mean by damage is meaning that you can really mangle the sound to something that's usually not possible with most of the other tape emulation plugins. Right, because most tape emulation plugins are designed, they are modeled to sort of replicate the characteristics of the tape machine. This is not. This is right. This one, they are not tied down to whatever the circuit is. They can really drive it to different extreme levels, right? And you get some out of this world results out of this, lah. Okay, right. I'll probably experiment a little bit more with TIP. One more thing, Brian. Hey, I need to get in touch with you, Brian, all right? Because I think you probably know why I'm gonna get in touch with you. Can you probably, I'm not sure what's the best way, do you have an email address or a way that I can reach you or contact you, or maybe drop you drop me an email, okay? Right? All my details are all in my channel info. Can you get in touch with me, Brian? Okay, right. So anyway, sorry folks, a little bit of business to settle. So let's get back to business. All right. Okay. So here we kick drum. So let's go back with the kick drum. A little low cut high pass filter at 20. I always do it just in case. Okay. Now, I am tempted to mess around with the kick for now. I'm always tempted to do so, but I don't think we need to at this point in time. I'm just going to leave it at this and I want to move on to the next thing, okay? Main reason why is that currently I'm just working on too little information. There's not enough information on of the entire mix, what the other instruments are. So I will be making decisions if I were to EQ, if I were to do anything to the kick drum right now. It'll be based on incomplete information, you see. So in fact, what I want to do is I will move on and go straight to the 808 bass, okay? And let me check that out. So I'm going to put in this tape as well and let's solo the 808, okay? Woohoo! All right, so that tape is really giving it a little bit of. Okay, all right. I suppose there is a little bit. Nice. Okay, let's increase the glue. Okay, interesting. This glue here, obviously, as the name implies, it's like adding a little bit more of a compression to it. And this is cool because this is actually kind of compressing and taming the transient of the 808, which can be a good thing because this is gonna work really, really well with the kick drum, okay? Right, so maybe this is a good thing. So let's crank up the glue, and very importantly, let's listen to it in context with the kick. Okay, right. So now when I hear the kick and the 808 bass together, I am hearing at least there's a little bit more information, okay? Okay, let's flip the phase for now. Let's see how it goes. Okay, high pass at 20 again. This is a little bit more subdued, a little more rounded. This one a little bit more brighter, a bit more high end. Interesting. They both kind of work in their own way. This one, especially the transient of the kick comes through a lot more if I invert the phase. But that may not be what I want, you know? So this is a bit more rounded sounding, okay? Okay, cool, all right? Let's go with the kick. Let's go back to the kick drum. And I'm hearing some things which I want to work on. Okay, so I want to hunt for... So I recommend that you... There you go. So this is like an octave above the root. So this is at about 110 hertz. So this means that the root of the fundamental of this kick drum is probably about 55, right? That's very typical for a hip hop kick drum, especially, right? So I want to cut that out a little bit because it will help that fundamental come out a little bit more. And what was I going to say? Okay, mixing is not a linear process. It's not a thing which you start from A, B, C, D, E all the way to Z. Sometimes it could be A, B, C, D, and then all the way you got to like the point of, let's say, Q, R, S, T midway, and something from early on will need to be fixed. So you may jump back and forth. You will see me sometimes I'll be working on the vocal and then suddenly just jump back quickly on, let's say, a hi-hat, right? Just to tweak something, because everything affects everything, right? We set the things that we don't forget. That's another very, very useful phrase to remember when it comes to mixing as well. You set, but don't forget, because everything affects everything. You may always need to come back later to address something. So in this case, this is one of the areas lah. So I'm hearing the relationship between the 808 and the kick. bypass that. Cleans it up a little bit, which I think is good. Okay, let's keep that in looping. Okay, now there's one note. At about 150, 149 to be exact, just 1 nil. There you go. Okay, now having said that, I think I will want to pull in a limiter, which is a little clipper. Just again, I still feel there is one or two sometimes with the kick drum, one or two hits which just kind of poke out a little bit too much. And that's basically what this little clipper is doing. I think there, that one. There, it just kind of catches it. While most of the time it's not, okay? It's not doing anything. There you go. Nice, okay? So we have the kick and the 808 bass. Let's move on. Next thing, snare. So there are actually a couple of us. There's actually only one main snare. And same thing, same deal. Let's drop in the IP, the tape. So check it out. Okay, right. Interesting thing about this snare is that it's slightly heavy to the right, and sometimes, you know, samples that come in are, for some weird reason, sometimes it's not necessarily always centered. Now, if it is a stereo thing, it's fine, but in some cases, like in this case, I feel that this snare needs to be, you know, mono. I'd rather have it dead center instead of like slightly skewed to the right. So I would rather do that. Okay, so I just did a merge to make sure that this your left and right is summed together, and so we get a mono signal. Yeah, a lot better. Okay, cool, very cool. Take out a bit of that. Right, now I'm hearing there, that's about 870. So let's just cut that out. And this might do with some compression. And what should we do for that? Let's just try it with this first. All right, the usual tape drive, virtual drive, sorry. A little bit more compressed, yeah. I like that, but we could go a little bit more aggressive on this. And let's do bomber. Okay, let's use bomber. So this should be fat. Let me bring up the drive first all the way, and let's check it out. Okay, let's bring up the intensity. Okay, right. This obviously is a bit too much. 50, around just a little bit above 50% seems to be the right amount. Bypass. Okay, let's underdrive it and see. Interesting. All right, let's go with tight. Let's change the. Let's go back to present. Let's change the different modes. Okay. This seems to be the best. I see that I can kind of drive it and give it a little bit more sustain as well. Bypass. Yeah, so it's got a bit more transient knock on it. Otherwise, this one just feels very, very light. Yeah, a little bit more wood, you know, like for example, how I would describe if, like, say you're doing like a side stick on a real snare drum. Okay, just a little bit, but let me just compensate back down, but just about 1 dB. There we go. In context. Nice. It's got a bit of weight to it, right? It's added weight to it without even having to do any EQ. So we have some claps here. So same thing. Let's deal with the claps. Let's bring in the claps. Very nice. So this clap. So this one's got a bit of reverb in it, but it's still pretty much stereo. So I think I would want to give it a little bit of reverb, okay? Alright, okay. And speaking of reverb, let's try something new again, right? I'm always up to experimenting. So this is, let me try and look for it. Do I remember where did I put it? Where did I put the reverb? Okay, this is under Plugin Alliance and Unfiltered Audio Tails. Let's try this baby out, okay? This is actually a brand new reverb from Plugin Alliance, actually Unfiltered Audio, but they're under the Plugin Alliance group lah. So this one, it's cool because it's got this shimmer mode, but it's also got something. You can also play with a sample rate. It's like a pitch shift. It's for creative purposes lah, but you can use it as a great reverb as well. So this reverb swap, right, is to what this does is that it is sensitive to the transient of, let's say a snare drum in this case. So what this will do is that whenever it detects the next transient, it will damp the reverb down. Essentially, what this does is that it cleans up the reverb so that the tail does not tail into the next note or the next transient or the next hit or the next vocal. It's really, really cool. It's really useful, right? So let's try it out. Let's play with it. Let's try and maybe look through some of the ones, because let's see. Instruments, drums. Let's try and look for the one with that synth wall of sound. No. Okay, I think it's down here. Ooh, interesting. I've not seen this. Hip hop and R&B, rap, vocal slap. This is something we can try later as well, okay? So this one, right? I think it's here. There you go. All right. So let's check out how it sounds on the let's set it there. And for the mix, I think let's go with 100% because obviously this is going to be on a send effect send. So let's check it out. Let's add a bit of that reverb. Ooh, very nice. It's giving that space. Wow, I like that. Just listen to, yeah, that real tight. It just makes this snare a lot wider, a lot bigger, right? Instead of just mono, now you can hear that, it's a lot wider. Sounds good on its own. I don't think I need to even EQ it much. Okay, let me just bring in the clap again. Turn this clap down a little bit. Okay. Even though this is, again, it's just a good habit to just check the phase, okay? Let's just invert the polarity. All good, okay? All good here, all right? So let's bring this down. Check out. I like how it helps to give space to whatever thing that, that you're adding that reverb to. Very nice. Okay, let's listen in context. Awesome. Let's bring in hi-hat. Okay, so let's pull in the same thing. Let's bring this down. Let's turn the noise down. Hi-hat. Alright, okay. These are pretty standard trap hats. Right, with that typical trap triplet, sextuplet rhythm. There you go. So, you see, this is part of the arrangement as well. It starts off, right, with A notes and then it goes into 16ths. Then drops back down to 8 notes again, right, for the next 4 bars. And then go back to 16. Awesome, okay. So this one is also interspersed with open hi-hats. So let's check that out. All right. There we go. Okay. Oh, let's see. Okay, let's see, where should I drop this? Should I just put it to one side? In fact, I'll just leave this up the center. You know why? Because the hi-hat itself is already occupying the sides. So right, this does not need to go to the sides for now, okay? That's what I think anyway. So right, all these decisions, sometimes they can be changed later on. Okay, so the clap 2, right, this is kind of just to accent on. Check it out, right? Okay, I would take out a little bit of the top end, and I don't think I need the reverb to it. Right, don't need to send any reverb to this, or maybe I do, because it was giving a little bit of fizziness to it. And okay, there is one little note in this clap which I think we need to deal with. This little honky. There you go. Okay, now, so RTs are actually very useful nowadays because visually they can sort of help you to detect and identify if there's any kind of resonances. But my advice is don't use it and don't rely on it to try and listen for those frequencies. Use your ears first. Don't look at the screen. Don't look at the RTA. Listen to it. Try and pick out where are those particular frequencies that may be bugging you or anything that you don't want, that's unwanted and you want to get rid of. Identify it, listen to it, hear it first, then use maybe tools like the RTA, the spectrum analyzer there to sort of verify the information, okay, that's to be delivered. The ears have to be the main thing that decides and informs the decisions that you make, not the eyes, okay, right? We don't mix with our eyes, we mix with our ears. So, right, that is just something I need to cut out, and there we go. Let's cut this down. There you go. So this gives emphasis on every 4, maybe a bit more. Yeah, so it makes every 4 a little bit harder, you see? Okay, right. I love Uno. He's all these very subtle things, you know, that he does, right? So let's add this clap number 3. Let's see what this does. There you go. It's little, again, subtle things to add interest. This might need a bit of reverb, or let's put a lot. What happens if we put a lot of reverb in it? Let's see. That's actually pretty cool. That is actually pretty cool. Whether appropriate or not, I don't know. In fact, it's cool. It's cool because the two claps are slightly different pitch, right? Again, small details, man, that sometimes, add a bit of interest to a track or a part. So let's listen to just this clap alone. So you would expect it to be a single pla pla, that is typical, but this is actually different. Da 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 so da, right? It's like a fourth above. Da, da. So not only does this add rhythmic information, right? It's a rhythmic thing because it gives that little emphasis there, but it's also harmonic, melodic because there's a note to it. So good job lah, right? Right, for Uno and AJ, both of you guys. And that reverb, again, sometimes you just gotta experiment and just, okay, sometimes you would think that, right, let's turn the reverb down and just slowly just bring in. Or sometimes in this case, let's just leave it at this ridiculously large amount of reverb send and see what happens. And that's interesting, okay? Because of the note of that clap and the reverb sustain, you actually get da-da, it's almost like a little note going on. It's got two notes, da-da-da, behind there, right? So here we go. Very cool. Okay, now a couple other snare rolls. Again, small little details that help to give a little bit of attention. This little snare roll. Roll off a little bit of the top end. Same thing, very, very cool. All right, so let's mess around, right? Mess around with the reverb. That's very interesting again. Okay, but again, this might be a bit too much. So this one. So let's just leave it at that. And I think if you notice one thing, all right, let me kind of go to where the further audio tails is. So with this reverb swap on, okay, have a listen to how the reverb tail goes, okay? Especially when you get to that snare roll part, reverb swap. See, it ducks it every time. So every time you have da 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 da. So it ducks the reverb whenever that second hit comes in. So the reverb tails don't spill into each other. You don't get a da 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 da. You get a da 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 da. Hopefully that explains that. I'll play that one more time so you can sort of hear exactly what do I mean by that. In fact, I'll just solo only the snare roll. Okay, and I'll just play that for you. See, right? So what if I turn off the reverb swap? Okay, you probably need to really hear it. I'll have to bring up the decay. So let's see. Okay, let's try this. So this is without reverb swap. Let's turn on reverb swap. See? Yeah, this is what it does, right? So okay, again, without reverb swap, every time it hits, right, the reverb gets triggered whenever the next snare roll hit comes, right? The reverb still continues to spill over, right? So that is with reverb swap off, but with reverb swap on, every time that's the next hit comes on, it will kill and duck the reverb, okay? And that gives a very, very cool effect. Okay, so let's bring the decay up so we have a long decay. All right, let's see whether it works or not. Nah, okay, we still have to keep it short. Very cool. Very cool. Okay, let's bring out the 808 again. Okay, right. So there's one thing in the bass group which I am hearing. So again, set and then forget. Okay, there's one thing that I want to deal it in the bass. So let's go now to the bass. The drums are good. Okay, boom, 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 boom. So this goes to, oh, it's still going to the bass. Going to the bass first. There we go. Okay, I can hear it here already, right? So let me just. Okay, right. First thing, wave C4 just to really control that low end, just to make it more even. All right. So this is coming out from the 808. Okay, there's one note. It's like a fifth above. 147. Yeah. So I want to cut that out. There, that's much better. Okay, and not only that, I want to bring in MV2, right? I want to try to maybe bring out the sustain of the 808. It's bringing out some of the harmonics as well. But let me turn this down. Yeah, that should be all right. That's good. And back to where the kick is. Okay, now this means, again, it's providing, now I have a little bit more information. It's providing me a little bit more info on what I need. So I think this kick also. Okay, right. So interestingly, it's already there, but this needs to be maybe a slightly deeper cut and just a bit of wider cue. Yeah. Just to give space for that 808 too. Okay, flip polarity and see. Okay, see, now in this case, when I flip the polarity now the kick and the bass seem to, fill up the bottom end a lot better. They seem to play together a lot better. So sometimes that's what I mean by don't spend too much time hung up on, let's say, at the start on the kick drum, because you're working on incomplete information. You don't know what else or what other stuff or other elements that are in the mix. So whatever EQ decisions it's based on, you don't have any frame of reference, you see. So now when I've kind of pulled all of these other stuff in, all of the other elements in, I've pulled in and added that 808 bass. Now it makes sense, okay? Right, so let's go. Next thing, sample, right? And why I'm talking about putting the sample in first, because it's the most important, characteristic identifier of the song. So this was something that we used. I can't remember exactly, but we used one of the AI programs to extract the sample from the original demo, because long story short, right, the original demo we could not get the multi-track files out of it, but yet this was some of the samples which were so key to the track, the original demo track that was sent to us. So right, so I managed to pull this out using an AI program, and there we have it. So this solo. There you go. Okay, and what I'm going to do is, okay, let's pull the same thing. Now, instead of going with tape, I'll go with something a little bit more conventional this time. Okay, I'm going to go with the VCC VTMA. Okay, so the only difference between what I did earlier on just now, right, in terms of the tape and console emulation, is that now I'm using the virtual tape machines, which is from Slate. This one is a little more subtle, okay, right? And in most times, this is kind of what you want, a very subtle, a very subtle imparting of that analog tape characteristic to your track. The TAIP, that tape by Baby Audio, that one is if you want to mangle it and you want to, if I want to kind of experiment and go a little bit, extreme, a bit left of field. So this one is a little bit more straightforward, a little bit more clean. Okay, so it's not so drastic. Only other difference, one more difference as well. Instead of the 4000 G, I go with the API setting, which is a little more cleaner, right? Slightly cleaner sounding. Anyway, to my ears, anyway, lah. Okay, so. So this is really cool. It's interesting. This was actually extracted, right? So we can still hear some of a little bit of the, a little bit of the artifacts, the wobbly thing. But it kind of makes it cool because it sounds as if it's, something that's a little dirty. And speaking of dirty, let's try to add a bit of lo-fi-ishness to this. Like, even though it is a little lo-fi already, let's try to add a little bit of lo-fi-ishness. So let me look for it, okay? And where is it? Streamliner, distortion, and is it there? I'm trying to remember where in the world is it? Aha, this one. Okay, this one, the lo-fi. Right, so let's play around with this first and let's see how it sounds. Let me turn this down just in case it's super loud. Let's go to the front again. Very subtle at this point in time, but let's take a look at maybe some of these presets and see what can we do. Oh, no presets. Oh, okay, maybe I did not load the presets in this. So let me just play around with this and see, right, how can we mess around with it. So let's see. All right, so selective amplifier versus signal convolutions. All right, so this will make it sound like it's recorded by a bad microphone or playback or an antiquated speaker. Very cool, right? So let's just play that in and. Okay, yeah, so okay, this flux thing is adding a little bit of like wow and jitter, so the pitch is going okay, so this one is like a compressor. Very interesting. Very interesting. Okay, interesting. It's acting like a compressor. It's bringing up all the little kind of noise thing going on. So tape hiss. Let's add this tape hiss and see. Okay, no, maybe not tape hiss lah. Okay, so let's change this to interesting. There we go. All right, let's change this to vinyl. Let's change this and let's see. There we go. And imagine we can actually, mess around with this. Right? So maybe we have a little bit of, say, do we do an envelope follow? Envelope follow is cool because this kind of follows the dynamics of the audio. So right, amplitude of the noise signal is shaped by the amplitude input. Yep, okay, that's right. Okay, so if the signal increases, right, if there's more signal, the vinyl noise will also increase. And if it goes down, right, if the signal is a little bit lower in level, the noise level, the vinyl noise level will also, right, duck down accordingly. So this is super cool, right? Very, very cool plugin that is so powerful. All right, very, very powerful for creating lo-fi effects and, you know, distorting. And I think here, of course, you got the usual bit crusher, which I don't think we need to use bit crusher, right? So if it's a bit crusher, you're gonna get like let's bring the bit rate down to. Okay, this is the typical bit crusher thing lah. But now we don't need it. We just leave the leave it at 100% original, right? We don't need that bit crusher effect. So here we go. Let's blend in that sample again. All right, so let me fast forward. Okay, right. Now, again, it feels like, wow, okay, there's a lot of noise and junk and gunk that's going on underneath this sample. But again, we still have a bit of incomplete information. Let's wait. Let's mix in the rest of the tracks, especially the vocals, and then we'll see whether or not does this still need to be cleaned up or not. Because I kind of like it to have all that dirty, you know, imperfect sound that's going behind in the sample. It just adds a lot of character instead of trying to sanitize it and make it sound so what's the word, you know, sanitize. Okay, you know, making it sound sterile. Okay, that's not what we want. Okay, all right. So I know, you know, everyone's about, you know, having sanitizers and all that, but right, in this case, we want it to have a little bit of that dirt lah. Okay, so next thing, I want to bring in this bass trombone. Okay, so this bass trombone here is going across the verses. Again, this is kind of trying to recreate what we had in the sample, right? So let me pull in. This one will be back to 4K. Probably will need some compression. Okay, cool. I know where to send this. I'm going to send this to the string group because I want it to sound, because all the strings are actually going to a group here, okay, called strings. So I want to send this also to here because basically what I have in there is I have a reverb which is used to sort of treat it as a whole orchestral section. So I reckon this bass trombone would fit well into that as well. So I want it to sit within the same space. So I'm going to send it there. Okay, so here we go. Let's unmute that and just solo the bass trombone, and we should get. There we go. All right. Okay, so this one, of course, we're going to need some compression to even it out, and I'm going to use the custom opto. Already sounds really good on its own. Let's go for something like about 5:1 ratio. Yeah, it's evened it out a lot better. Nice, okay. Let me just check out the tone. This is flat. More, makes it a little darker. Nope. I don't mind it a little bit airy actually. Okay, let's keep it at airy. Yeah, that's nice. Okay, cool. So now let's drop in the processing for this group here, okay? So normally there is an LE2A, okay, which I'll just turn it on first. And this is the one which I talked about. That's the orchestral reverb. This is the EMT 140, right? It's a plate reverb. This is the universal. It's a good old plugin. And we'll probably bring the mix value down to about, 10 o'clock. Okay, right. I changed my mind now, right? Because it feels like it is kind of exciting the reverb a little too much. I'm going to go back with just good old flat, okay? Flat, yeah. There we go. All right, so bass trombone. It's sitting in there nicely. Next thing, okay. In fact, let's just play around with let's go with the strings next, okay? Because that is the next important element. Let's solo it first. Okay. Here is actually more of just the double basses playing that note. Now for strings, I have this typical preset which I already use. Okay, it's called MixStrings anyway. Now pretty much the same. All right, same in terms of what I use with the tape and console emulation. The only thing I have extra here is the Waves C4. All right, so just now you saw the Waves C4 on the 808 bass, but this one here I have this on the strings. This is set to be. It's actually based on a preset called Upward Compressor, basically an expander. So this helps to, especially the low level, whatever that's a little softer elements of the strings, especially strings if you need the articulation to come out a little bit more. I find this helps, right? It helps, especially like the softer lower parts, especially in context with excuse me, especially in context of modern mixes, like modern contemporary stuff. If this was like a classical or a more organic piece, I probably wouldn't put that Wave C4. But because here you kind of have to compete with, the energy level, you got to compete with drums, with bass, with vocals, with raps and everything. So sometimes it needs that little bit. And the most natural, most transparent way to do it is to use upward compression or an expander in this case. Hopefully you found that useful, man. Awesome. So, how are we doing? We are 10:30, about an hour into the whole thing. So let's solo this string ostinato, I suppose. Okay. Don't need all the bottom. Okay, so let me cut out this. At about 437, between 430 and 440 hertz, okay? Just to clean it out. It's got a bit of the rosin, right? Just a bit of that rosin harshness at 1.8K. Okay, let's blend it. Right, okay. I forgot this percussion roll. Let's bring this in first. Let's bring everything in. Oh, that's so fun. That is so fun. Okay. It sounds very fun. Although it sounds very, very clean. So this probably means that we need to dirty this up a little bit. So let's solo this. There you go. We're missing some detail there. So, all right. Let's be trying to bring all of that out. So same thing, let's give it a bit more glue. That is interesting. Let me compensate the output down. It's quite a significant boost in gain. Okay, this might be a bit too much because it's choking the. Yeah, it was choking the. Especially when you get that low, whatever you might call it. Right, could be a tom in like an electronic tom. Yeah, okay, so that was choking it a little bit too much, okay? So this is a bit clean, so how about if I kind of roll off a little bit on the top end, but I'm going to go with the 6 dB per octave slope. Okay, that's much better. Very cool. Okay, cool. That bass line is pretty much, I think, taken by those bass trombones lah. The strings just kind of add a little bit of their weight and to it. Okay, the way that I hear it. Okay, let's see what else do we have. Okay, very cool. We have some of these little percussion stuff. We got some timpani, got some effects. Let's maybe just pull these effects in because it's straightforward. Let's pull the effect. Okay, now again, let's make this riser effects interesting. Okay, and very easy way to do it. Let's go with imager, also an imager. Let's stereoize the thing and let's. Alright, okay. Maybe even play around with a little bit of delay on this, I guess, I reckon. Yeah, maybe just a little bit of delay, and how better delay to do than to use comeback kit, which is, again, I'm using a lot of baby audio products in this, man. This is so cool. Such a cool, such a cool soundscape. Yes, let's go with soundscape. All right. Before that, I was using a lot of just the baby comeback. So now this is the full version. And let's check out the. All right. Okay, let's go with a bit of ping pong. Let's see. Yeah. Okay, let's pull that in. Okay, this makes things more interesting. A bit more. There we go. A little more interesting here. So this one is going into the verse. Check it out. So yeah, again, more. Right? It's like a ping pong delay. So just a bit more motion now. Instead of having the thing just cut off like that, you have a little bit of interesting stuff going. There we go. Awesome. Now, all the other stuff, I'll skip all of these first because the most important thing in this track, besides the beat, of course, is vocal. So let's go right into vocal, okay? Hope everyone is still there with me. Okay, so once again, let's pull in my typical vocal chain, and here we go. Let me just quickly run through what I would use in here. I start off right when dealing with any sort of processing. There's always this flow chart of thought processes that go. So I would roughly split this whole process into 2 stages. The first one is what I would call the corrective processing. So corrective processing means that basically I'm trying to sort of take away and remove all the whatever the ugliness, whatever the warts, whatever the imperfections, or whatever that I don't want in it. Okay, imagine like for example, right? If you're putting on makeup, right? This is the foundation, lah. Right? You are removing all the imperfections and impurities. Okay, all right. And then I would move on to the next second stage of it. The second half, it will be called the creative processing. So this is where I would add, shape things for tone, shape things for character, add things such as effects and all that. Okay, because those fall into the creative category. And let's start first of all. Let's just solo the vocal. Let's loop the loop around the verse. And here we go.
Lisan kata, jangan resah, ini tak berpisah. Sebuah nokta aku sajikan. Terungkai sang cita keluar dari gua, meluaskan minda melunaskan lisan kata. Jangan resah, ini tak berpisah, cuma menusuk ke dalam jiwa.
Okay, right. So a couple of things that immediately kind of jump out to me, right? Okay, well, the vocals are good, the delivery is good, I think everything is great, just that maybe the capture might not been that great as I would love lah. I think this mic kind of sounds a little too bright, maybe not the right type of microphone for Sang Chita, for the artist's voice. We could have gone with something a little darker sounding, because he's got quite a strident vocal tone. So if you have a strident vocal tone coupled and combined with a bright mic, yeah, you start to invite some trouble here. Like you're asking for a little bit of trouble, but it's not something that can't be dealt with. Okay, so that is not a problem. So we make things work. Okay, so there are also some minor things with a bit of low end sub bass issues, but again, sub bass issues, right, are very easy to deal with. Right, all we do is with a low pass filter. So here we go. Let me pull up TDR Nova. This is one of my favorite plugins once again. Parallel dynamic EQ. So let's go on. Let's go with and I keep forgetting how do we turn on the analyzer. Okay, let's turn on the analyzer. So you can sort of hear it's got quite a significant amount of sub bass low end leaking inside. So
jangan resah, ini tak berbisah, cuma menusuk ke dalam jiwa, menahan nafsu di.
Okay, so there are two things. One, there is one sort of a nasal gong, 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 they're on that note. Okay. Okay, so let me just pull it in. Let's select the second band, the narrowest Q, smallest bandwidth, solo. Let's look for it.
Di bumi yang nyata merentasi haluan tanpa peta, dari kegelapan alam mata lajak ke pelosok bercahaya.
So it's about around between 900 to 1K, that region. Okay, so that's the one which I'm hearing. Okay, these resonances could come from a lot of things. Could be the voice itself, could be the mic, it could be the room. There are many factors. Without being there, I can't tell. Okay, so
berapa ramai lagi yang harus pergi, berapa kali harus kini mengundur diri. Keganasan yang dilakukan tidak terhenti, pembalasan dikembali.
Okay, I think the release can be a little bit longer.
Kembali dari lubuk hati, coretan situasi kini menjadi saksi. Umpama singa mengaum tanpa reaksi, spekulasi, imajinasi tanpa penghuni. Kawal berdilam mengawal seteru sampai mati.
Right, very cool, right? So you see, it's already cut out a little bit of that that note.
Terungkai sang cita keluar dari gua,
Yeah, okay.
meluaskan minda
Okay, now another one is a little bit of a high mid. Some people call it whistle tone because it's not exactly a whistle, but I'll solo it, and then when you hear it, you'll know exactly what I mean. Okay, so here. There you go. about 4K, right? 3.9, about 4K. It's usually around there, right? I mean, not all, not even some mics also will exhibit that. Like I know my Audio Technica 4050 really, really well. It exhibits this issue at about 4.2K. So I always have to, if I record something with my 804050, which I used to do a lot in the past, it's always something I need to always notch out 4.2K. But this goes to learning your equipment, learning your microphones, learning the characteristics of how they sound, and knowing what to do, all right, when the time comes.
Di bumi yang nyata merentasi haluan tanpa peta dari kegelapan alam mata.
Still some low end is still coming through. I could probably bring the high pass filter a little higher.
Lajak ke pelosok bercahaya. Berapa ramai lagi yang harus pergi, berapa kali harus kini mengundur diri.
To about 100 hertz, okay? Still a good region. You're not losing any of the body or the bottom end. In fact, later on, I feel like I might even want to add a little bit more body to the voice, because it does sound a little thin. Again, could be the mic, could be a lot of reasons. Okay, all right. So let's skip the smooth operator. Let's turn on virtual tape machines. So this would most definitely add a little bit of character and a little bit of volume as well. So let's check it.
Keganasan yang dilakukan tidak terhenti, pembalasan dikembali dari lubuk hati, coretan situasi.
There we go. Play from the top.
Terungkaisan kita keluar.
Very good. Let's turn on. Next thing, virtual mix rack, and you will see some familiar faces, but also some new plugins in here. Now, trimmer is just to adjust the trim in case the vocal file comes in really, really hot or really, really soft. I can use this to trim the input level without having to clip gain the thing. So same thing, virtual channel. We've seen this. I've used this earlier already. But in place of the FG73, this here is the Hollywood Virtual Tube Collection. So the FG73, right, being a solid state preamp, right, the Neve 1073 does not have tubes in it. It's just a solid state mic pre. You can of course saturate and overdrive a mic pre, a solid state mic pre. It's not something that's exclusively belongs to the realm or the club of tubes and and all that, right? You heard of solid state rectification in guitar amps. That's how you get overdrive and distortion, right? It's using solid state components. So, but for vocals, I find that using this is Hollywood. This one simulates a tube pre, right, or a valve pre, whichever side of the Atlantic Ocean you are from. So this one, tube saturation flatters vocals a lot. So this one is what I like to use. Okay, so let's check this out. All right. Oh wow, okay. It has automatically brought in so much, a lot more of the body, which I was not getting there. And just by adding this, okay? Okay, this might be a little bit hot, so let me just try and bring the trim.
Cuma menusuk ke dalam jiwa, menahan nafsu di bumi yang nyata, merentasi haluan tanpa peta.
Yeah, so I got to cut it down by about 9 dB.
Dari kegelapan alam mata, lajak ke pelosok bercahaya.
Okay, the thing is, some of those frequencies which I was cutting out with TDR Nova, because of a little bit of compression that's happening now, it's coming back in. Okay, but anyway, I'll point out what I'm doing next. So, not only is this adding a lot of that tube saturation to it, it's adding a lot of weight and fatness to the vocal, which, wow, this is great, right? It really helped, right? The weight, especially of the vocal, right? So the next thing I have, and I love using this on vocals, is parallel compression. Okay, now there are many ways and places where you can always apply it, but one of my favorites would be using it on vocals. So in this case, this is FG Stress. This is their model of the empirical lapse distressor. So what I've set this here, this is basically just their opto setting, all right? A pretty aggressive like a opto setting, and what we're doing here is this is run because of a lot of plugins nowadays have this mix knob. This is doing it in parallel 50-50. I often just kind of start at 50-50. Sometimes maybe I'll back it off. I don't think I've ever used anything more than 50%. Most of the time it's always at 50-50. Something a little bit more dynamic, I will bring it down, like maybe 30% or 40 or something like that. But this sounds great already. But in fact, I feel like, okay, maybe we can add, let's see how it would sound with some of this harmonics, extra harmonics added, which this FG Stress can do, right? The actual hardware unit also does that as well.
Terungkai sang cita keluar dari gua, meluaskan minda, melunaskan lisan kata. Jangan
Nice.
resah, ini tak berbisa, cuma menusuk
It's
ke
a little bit
dalam
of
jiwa.
phase
Menahan
cancellation of
nafsu
vocal.
di bumi yang nyata,
It's not the
merentasi
recording.
haluan tanpa
I mean, it's not the
peta.
mix.
Dari
It's probably the
kegelapan
recording
alam
room though.
mata, lajak ke pelosok bercahaya. Berapa ramai lagi yang harus pergi, berapa kali harus kini mengundur diri. Keganasan
I
yang
like this
dilakukan
distortion tree,
tidak terhenti.
right? I like this. It's adding a little bit of that harmonic saturation to it. Okay.
Henti pembalasan dikembali dari lubuk hati. Coret
All right. Cool. So that it's still that same frequency note.
coretan situasi kini menjadi saksi. Umpama singa mengaum tanpa reaksi. Spekulasi, imajinasi tanpa penghuni. Kawal
At about 880. So let me just cut this down.
berdilam mengawal seteru sampai mati. Terungkai sang cita keluar dari gua, meluaskan minda, melunaskan lisan kata.
Okay, and then that same thing.
Jangan resah, ini tak berbisa, cuma menusuk ke dalam jiwa.
Yeah, at about 4K. Same thing. It's the same notes.
Menahan nafsu di bumi yang nyata.
Right. Okay. So now, next thing. So we were done. Okay, with that, we've evened out some of the most drastic fluctuations in terms of the dynamics. Cut out the annoying, right? Especially those two annoying frequencies and the rumble. So the next thing, right, is to just control a little bit of the sibilance. Okay.
Merentasi haluan tanpa peta. Dari kegelapan alam mata, lajak ke pelosok bercahaya.
All right. Very cool. Again, bright mic, it probably emphasize the sibilance. You see.
Berapa ramai lagi yang harus pergi, berapa kali harus kini mengundur diri. Keganasan yang dilakukan tidak terhenti, pembalasan dikembali dari lubuk hati. Coretan situasi kini menjadi saksi. Umpama singa mengaum tanpa reaksi.
Very cool. Okay, so let's move on. The next thing here is a compressor. This is Renaissance compressor from Waves, and right again, if you've watched my streams previously, you already know what I'm using this for. So I apologize for repeating it, right, and then saying the same thing if you are a regular viewer, if you've watched this before. So this one, right, for the benefit of those who are watching for the first time, what this compressor does, I'm just using this to capture the loudest peaks. This is a fairly fast attack, right? 2 milliseconds with a 170 millisecond release, 4.5 ratio. All right, this is actually a preset that's used by Mike Pensado, actually, right? Pensado vocal. So this is just going to capture the topmost peaks. It's not going to compress it, obviously compress the thing, right? And the amount of attenuation I'm going for,
Spekulasi, imajinasi tanpa penghuni. Kawal berdilam mengawal seteru sampai mati. Terungkai sang cita keluar dari gua, meluaskan minda, melunaskan lisan kata. Jangan resah,
let me reset that.
tak berbisa, cuma menusuk ke dalam jiwa.
Not more than 1 dB, okay? That's what I'm looking for, right? It's not going to compress more. It's not going to do any attenuation of more than 1 dB here. And that's all it's doing, capturing the loudest, most peaks. Okay, moving on. So, I think that I want to try something out. And again, trying to give a little bit more dimension and a little bit more character, a little bit more width, and making the vocal a little bit bigger. And no, I'm not going to use the vocal thickening trick, but instead I'm going to use something which is a little bit new. So now let's move on to the next stage. So corrective processing is done, right? I've got all the corrective processing elements which I'm happy with. So now this, all the vocals, Sang Chita's vocals are all being bussed to another group, right? It's being routed to this group. Now in this group, there are a couple of other things. Let's start first of all right? First of all, this is an 1176 and let's check it out, okay?
Terungkai sang kita keluar dari gua, meluaskan minda, melunaskan lisan kata. Jangan resah.
Right, so this one I'm going to really drive it really hard. But at this point in time, it's not really about the dynamics, it's more about the tone.
Ini tak berbisah, cuma menusuk ke dalam jiwa, menahan nafsu di bumi yang nyata, merentasi haluan tanpa peta, dari kegelapan alam mata, lajak ke pelosok bercahaya. Berapa ramai lagi yang harus pergi, berapa kali harus kini mengundur diri. Keganasan yang dilakukan tidak terhenti, pembalasan dikembali dari lubuk hati. Coretan situasi kini menjadi saksi, umpama singa mengaum tanpa reaksi.
Now the vocal is now more in your face. It's a lot more in your face, right? Instead of it's what it is. It was really sounding good before that, but this helps to bring it a little bit more in your face as well. Now, a couple of other things. With this aggressive treatment, it's going to bring up, okay, as you can hear some of the sibilance is coming up. A little bit of the bottom, that sub end is coming through as well. I may have to look at the I may have to look and process it with, like, say, some restoration plugins to remove some of that thump. Those actually probably came from what's that, plosives, right? It's because of that. So I'll deal with that later. So first things first. Next thing is this Pultec EQ. This EQ is actually before the 1176, and I know it's a little weird, but I set this compressor setting first, then only I go and tweak this EQ, because I find that the way it reacts, it's a little different. It's a little more subtle, and you are in many cases, right, driving a little bit more level into the compressor or so. So it's gonna compress a little bit harder, but because of those certain frequencies which I'm gonna be pushing into the compressor. Okay, hope that makes sense. All right, again, it takes a little bit of getting head around, right, in the first place. I want to attenuate a little bit on top.
Spekulasi, imajinasi tanpa penghuni, kawal berdilam mengawal seteru sampai mati.
Okay, I'm gonna go for the widest bandwidth,
Terungkai sang kita keluar dari,
and let's start with maybe at 4K.
Dari gua, meluaskan minda, melunaskan lisan kata. Jangan resah, ini tak
Go with 3K.
berbisah, cuma menusuk ke dalam jiwa, menahan nafsu
5K.
di bumi yang nyata, merentasi haluan tanpa peta, dari kegelapan alam mata, lajak ke pelosok bercahaya. Berapa ramai lagi yang harus pergi, berapa kali harus kini mengundur diri.
Alright.
Keganasan yang dilakukan tidak terhenti, pembalasan dikembali dari lubuk hati. Coretan
I kind of like 5K. Oh, sorry about that. I got the phone ringing there. Hang on a second. Hey folks, don't go away, all right? I'll just be back in a second. Okay. All right, just give me a second, guys. Okay. Sweet. Don't go anywhere. I'll be back. Let me just play the track for you guys while I go and take this call. It's probably important, okay? So let me just play the music, and don't go anywhere, folks. I'll be back in just a quick minute. Sorry for that. That was an important call. Usually I don't really take up calls, but I kind of figured that there was going to be something important coming along. Let's hopefully, right, take this little time to go and take a sip of water anyway. So where were we? We were dealing with the vocals. Okay, so I was listening to, and I kind of liked where 5K was going with the pull tech, but 5K is also kind of where it's bringing out sibilance again. So because of that, and because of the extra compression that's going on, it's very common to have another de-esser at the back here. So this is what I'm going to pull in and drop in another de-esser. Okay, in fact, it's kind of already there lah. All right.
Terungkai sang cita keluar dari gua, meluaskan minda melunaskan lisan kata. Jangan resah, ini tak berbisa, cuma menusuk ke dalam. Menahan nafsu di bumi yang nyata, merentasi haluan tanpa peta. Dari kegelapan alam mata, lajak ke pelosok bercahaya.
Nice.
Berapa ramai lagi yang harus pergi, berapa kali harus kini mengundur diri. Yang dilakukan tidak terhenti, pembalasan dikembali dari lubuk hati.
Alright, okay, so a little bit of TDR Nova. So sometimes with aggressive compression, it will bring out some other of the artifacts. So we kind of have to treat it that way as well. So solo vocal again.
Terungkai sang cita keluar dari gua, meluaskan minda melunaskan lisan kata. Jangan resah, ini tak berbisa.
So this is more towards the mid-range, the nasal region. Yeah, around 620 hertz. Now with this one, I'll just go with a much more milder setting, just a 2.0 to 2:1 ratio. Still a fast attack, right? The release at about 180.
Tanpa peta, dari kegelapan alam mata, lajak ke pelosok bercahaya. Berapa ramai lagi yang harus pergi, berapa kali harus kini
and a little bit of soothing at the. Okay, so it's at that same register, that same 4K area, but right, this time we'll go again a little bit more gentle.
Dilakukan tidak terhenti,
wider Q.
Balasan dikembali dari lubuk hati. Coretan situasi kini menjadi saksi. Umpama singa mengaum tanpa reaksi. Spekulasi, imajinasi.
I like even in that part when it goes mengaum, it brings out a little bit of that, that throatiness that was in the vocal delivery. So this is what we want to do. We're trying here to bring out all the character, the energy. Sometimes this is kind of lost sometimes when you have the music and everything going on, but we're helping to bring it out lah. So all this multi-stage compression, the parallel, right, compression, the extra compression here as well, it's all bringing all of that out. In fact, I would even go as far as just give it a touch of MV2 again. So MV2, very simple plugin, 3 controls, low level compression. It does something akin to expansion and also parallel processing, right? High level is the normal compression as we understand it, so I'm not going to touch this, and there's output level just to compensate. Okay, so probably we'll need to tuck it down about 2 dB.
Tanpa penghuni, kawal berdilam mengawal seteru sampai mati.
Yeah, so some parts, as you can hear a little bit of the low end coming through, and this one I have to fine tune lah, especially in between these parts where the breaths are. So in context of the mix, you can't really hear it, but it's good to deal with it also, because sometimes you get that little bit of 50 hertz kind of coming up in the vocal, which you don't want, right? So right, that's something that I will deal with later. So I was saying just now that I wanted to try something a little different, a little creative. So this is where I'm going to try and pull it in. All right. So Slate Digital, one of their new plugins that they develop is called Metatune, and right, it's actually a pitch correction software, but there are many other uses for it as well. Okay, so yeah, I'm going to turn off the pitch correction 0%, so no pitch correction is going to be applied. But the cool thing here that we're going to use is actually what we call the doubler. So it's got this built in here. You can adjust the dry, wet, the amount of the doubler effect, and also the width as well. So let's play around with this. Let's play it around. Let's go in solo first. So let me increase the doubler.
Terungkai sang cita keluar dari gua.
You can hear a little bit of it.
Minda melunaskan lisan kata. Jangan resah, ini tak berbisa.
Okay, now, so at this point, you can quite hear it's quite obvious already, right, doubler?
Cuma menusuk ke dalam jiwa. Menahan nafsu.
Okay, right, so there we go. So what if we play around with the width?
Nafsu di bumi yang nyata. Merentasi
Let's put the width at 100%.
Si haluan tanpa peta. Dari kegelapan alam mata. Lajak ke pelosok bercahaya. Berapa ramai lagi yang harus pergi.
Yeah, okay. So it's a very, very cool effect. Of course, this is a little bit too much. I wouldn't put that much inside. I would kind of back it down to maybe just under 20%.
Berapa kali harus kini mengundur diri. Keganasan yang dilakukan tidak terhenti. Pembalasan dikembali.
Maybe a little bit more.
Dari lubuk hati.
And in context. Okay, let's listen in context.
Terungkai sang cita keluar dari gua. Meluaskan minda melunaskan lisan kata. Jangan resah, ini tak berbisa. Cuma menusuk ke dalam jiwa. Menahan nafsu di bumi yang nyata. Merentasi haluan tanpa peta. Dari kegelapan alam mata. Lajak ke pelosok bercahaya.
There we go, okay? So just to add a little bit of width to the vocal. We don't really want it to sound too extreme because it sounds like, chorus vocal or something like that. It's not really what we're going to go for. We still want it to be a little bit raw, feels like, just the artist, the rapper, his voice really in your face. But just having that little bit of extra width to it, okay? I might tweak this later, right? Bring it down, bring it up. We'll see how. So let's go on with the creative stuff. We're pretty much almost done with this vocal. Let's add a little bit of this.
Berapa ramai lagi yang harus pergi. Berapa kali harus kini mengundur diri.
So this is wave super tap. This is actually a delay. But what this is being set to is being set to a very, very short slap back with no feedback at all. Because I want to simulate a space, simulate the room. So this was probably recorded in somewhere that's a little bit, dry, it's not of characteristics in it. So this is to sort of place the vocal into a nice sounding room, a very warm sounding room, and to get that warmth also, right? This is where the EQ section, this filter comes into place. Right, so this is a low pass filter, right, which rolls off at about 1.5 kilohertz and above. So basically a very warm sounding room, okay? I exaggerate it so you can hear it.
Keganasan yang dilakukan tidak terhenti.
Right? That's obviously too much. So just
Pembalasan dikembali dari lubuk hati.
so gives the vocal a bit of 3D-ness lah, all right?
Coretan situasi kini menjadi saksi. Umpama singa mengaum tanpa reaksi. Spekulasi, imajinasi.
All right, so now next one, let's drop in a little bit of, I want to give it a bit of front and back. So this is really easily achieved with delay.
Tanpa penghuni, kawal berdilam mengawal seteru sampai mati.
Okay, let's check it out. Playback.
Terungkai sang cita keluar dari gua. Meluaskan minda
Okay, very straightforward. This is just basically an 8th note delay, mono delay right up the center. In fact, I would probably give it a bit of ducking as well. Ducking meaning that when the main signal, right, in this case the rap is present, it will duck the delays, and then only during the spaces, the gaps in between, the delays will come back out again. So this again helps to keep it clear, keep it clean.
melunaskan lisan kata. Jangan resah, ini tak berbisa. Cuma menusuk ke dalam jiwa. Menahan nafsu.
Okay, right. So some, again, all of that compression is kind of building up a little bit of ooh, a little bit of that note.
Di bumi yang nyata merentasi haluan tanpa peta. Dari kegelapan alam mata lajak ke pelosok bercahaya. Berapa ramai lagi yang harus pergi. Berapa kali harus kini mengundur diri. Keganasan yang dilakukan tidak terhenti. Pembalasan dikembali.
I'll probably back down a little bit of that.
Kembali dari lubuk hati. Coretan situasi kini menjadi saksi. Umpama singa mengaum tanpa reaksi. Spekulasi, imajinasi tanpa penghuni. Kawal berdilam mengawal seteru sampai mati.
It's a bit of 1K.
Terungkap bangkai sang Chita keluar dari gua, meluaskan minda melunaskan lisan
You want to take out a little bit of the 500.
lisan kata. Jangan resah, ini tak berbisa, cuma menusuk ke dalam jiwa.
All right, okay. Folks, all right, let's take a quick, short break, like a 5-minute break or something like that. All right, I need to excuse myself for a second, okay? I need to back. Don't go anywhere. Later on, we'll probably cut it out and edit this part out so folks you can who watch it later on, right? I'm not going to be met with like long periods of silence. I'll just play the track in the background, right, with just the music. Don't go anywhere. I'll be back in a second. Hello, folks. I'm back. So, sorry again for the interruption. All right, and let's see what else is going on here. So the vocals, we've got the main vocals going on, and that's the main vocal.
Dari gua, meluaskan minda melunaskan lisan kata.
Now let's go with Shahyr's vocal, okay? So Shahyr's vocal, right? He takes the more melodic aspects of the song. So let's check it out. So now with this, I would probably also go with the same vocal chain. Let's go to the chorus first of all. All right, let's go to the chorus first, because that's the most important part of the song.
Lebih baik berserah, usah ragui akal.
Okay, so I was really sending it to this path. So let me take away all the effects and reverb first. Let's just listen to it in solo.
Bimbang tersilap langkah, penjuru menuju ajat.
Alright, okay. So this one does not have too much of the it's exhibiting some of the same frequencies actually. So I suspect that it's combination of the room or the mic, okay?
Lebih baik berserah, usah ragui akal, bimbang tersilap langkah, penjuru menuju ajal.
There we go, solo.
Lebih baik berserah, usah ragui akal.
890, alright? Okay, activate the threshold. Let's go with ratio 3:1. Fastest attack, release would go about 100.
Bimbang tersilap langkah, penjuru menuju
And on that high.
Lebih baik berserah, usah ragui akal, bimbang tersilap langkah.
This one is slightly lower at about 3.8K, so maybe it's the voice, not necessarily the mic. Okay, same thing, 3:1 ratio.
Penjuru menuju ajal.
Slightly wider Q.
Lebih baik berserah, usah ragui akal.
Much better, okay, a lot better, okay. Let's bring in this in.
Bimbang tersilap langkah, penjuru menuju ajal. Lebih baik berserah, usah ragui akal, bimbang tersilap langkah, penjuru menuju ajal.
Okay, let's bring in, as usual, the same thing, alright?
Di hutan disusukan. Lebih baik berserah, usah ragu.
Same thing, sibilance.
Bimbang tersilap langkah,
The same tape and console emulation plugin.
penjuru menuju ajal. Lebih baik berserah, usah ragui akal,
And let's bring in the R compressor again.
bimbang tersilap langkah, penjuru ajal.
Okay, let's bring this down. It's a bit hot.
Di hutan disusukan. Lebih baik berserah, usah ragui akal, bimbang tersilap langkah, penjuru menuju ajal. Lebih baik berserah, usah ragui akal,
Okay, same thing. Let's bring this compressor down.
bimbang tersilap langkah, penjuru menuju ajal.
right. Okay. So we are running out of the little CPU actually, because I think tape takes up a lot more CPU compared to the Slate Digital. So maybe it's a bit of time to let me just quickly freeze. Okay, all these tracks first. Let's start with the kick drum. Right. Let's freeze this. Okay. So let's see. Okay. So thanks again once again for supporting and tuning in this live stream. Haven't done this in a while, so it feels like if you don't do this regularly, you kind of lose a little bit. You get a little bit rusty with how things go and how the flow of things go. So especially this whole one whole month, I don't think we haven't done this in a month already, because the very last one, the very last one we did was for Serpent Tyrant, right? The band that's from China. So that was a month ago, I suppose, right? Can't really remember. So, but because again, Wasaman was so busy with so much stuff, and still is actually, so we haven't didn't manage to do a lot of things. But thank you again, right? I really do appreciate every single one of you who tuned in, who watched, who still continuously supported. I still put out a lot of other content as well besides the MixStream live streams. Um, Another thing I'm doing a lot more nowadays is I'm recording a lot more podcasts actually. In fact, I've put out 6 episodes of the podcast where I talk to different people, such as in the industry. I talk with fellow producers, engineers. Also, I talk to like musicians. So, like the most recent one I did was with a good friend of mine, right, the guitarist Az Samad. Okay, so that we had a great chat and we had a great conversation. I spoke to even up and coming music producers, Reading Lau, um, from Kuching Sarawak, Hyrule Hasnan, right, who is also an author of this book. This is a very very cool book called Asas Rakaman and Produksi Music, right? It's a BM book, first of its kind, in Malaysia, in to be printed in the country in Malaysia actually. And of course, right, I did an episode with Uno as well. I did an episode also with Emmett from Butterfingers. I was very, very privileged to have him chat in. So I have other folks lined up as well. So well, check out those MixStream episodes if you are into listening to more long form conversations and stories lah, right, of industry happenings, issues related to music industry and so on and so forth. But hey, hopefully you found all those the content that I have useful and informative. If you did, I really would appreciate if you can be a subscriber to the channel. If you want to help to support more creation of the content such as this, head on down to the Patreon page. Okay, you can see up there, right? Patreon.com/studio2105. Just go ahead, check it out, right? There are different perks and several tiers for different Patreon subscribers. So from as low as $1 a month, it goes all the way up to the VIP tier, which is $3 a month. Right, and each one gets, you get the different perks and special benefits, right? Like for VIPs, they get a one-on-one tutorial mentoring sessions. They get a mix walkthrough as well, and they also, entitled to even discounts, right? That towards any of the services that are here in the studio. So lots of special perks and benefits for Patreon subscribers, man. So do check it out, okay? And if you want to support the featured artists, if you subscribe and you send a message to me, right, on the through Patreon, and say that and use this code MixStream44, then I know that, right, whatever contribution that you put in, right, will go towards the featured artists, right, who are Sang Chita and also Shahyr. So let's keep on moving to the next one. Hi-hat open, bass stereo, okay, and the 808 bass. Okay, let's freeze up and free up a little bit more of this CPU power. Okay. All right. Let's get out and see what else is happening. Time remaining 30 seconds. Let me have a little drink first, a sip of water. 18, 17, whilst I freeze this track. Okay. I'm already hearing fireworks happening outside, man. So I guess some early celebrations for some folks. I don't blame, man. Then I'm very happy for them. I'm happy for people that that we can get to celebrate after 2 years of not being able to do so. Okay, let's freeze this percussion roll, and I think we should be good, right? I think the Baby Audio's tape definitely takes up a lot more CPU because I can usually run almost every track, and then sometimes I worked on tracks which like have 50, 60 tracks, 100 tracks or something like that with VTM and I mean virtual tape machine and all that, and the computer doesn't break a sweat. But these are not too many tracks, but it's already struggling a little bit. So let's go back to the chorus. Okay, here we go. Okay, right. Straightforward. I don't think it needs that much. So, I'm sending all of Shahyr's vocals into one group, and we can all process all of them there, right? So I feel that we can keep things a little simpler because this more melodic singing, you don't really need to like clamp on it too tightly. You don't have to squash it too much. So instead of right using the same type of processing, I'm gonna add this. Okay, so this is Vocal Rider from Waves as well. So didn't use this. I've used this a lot of times on other. There's also a bass rider which I use on bass, but this one, right, is gonna go with the smooth rider setting, which is the most, how to say, the gentlest, right? The most subtle setting. So this is very simple plugin to use. As you can see, this rider here is it's basically a fader, right? It's basically a fader, but imagine that you have an engineer or someone with super fast reflexes that they're able to ride the gain, right the fader up and down in response, right, in reaction to whatever the incoming signal is coming in this case the vocal, right? So it's very easy. You leave this and you see this in action. The range control is where you want to set the range, the maximum and the minimum level where it will act, right? So it won't jump or fly beyond that simple range. Next thing we need to do is to set the target, and let's play back the audio. Okay, let's play. And here we go. Then you can see Vocal Rider in action. See, when it gets to the penjuru menuju ajal, which is a little usually on the lower register, right, the vocalist volume will kind of lose a little bit of energy in terms of the volume. So it jumps and pushes it up to about 3 dB. So this is what Waves Rider does, and it does it in a very, very transparent way. It's different from compression, because with compression, the signal has to exceed the threshold before attenuation is being applied. This one is very fast. It looks ahead. Okay, it looks ahead. So even before, when it sees that the signal level is gonna come in really hot, it will already ride the fader down. So super transparent. So this one, instead of the mono delay, I'm going to send this to a stereo delay instead. There we go. Just to give a little bit of difference, okay, dynamics wise. Versus, we want to have that. I have that mono delay, right down the middle. But when you get into the verse, you want it to be a little bit more, especially with Shahyr's vocal, right? This is the very, very traditional, kind of very exotic, maybe even Arabic, Middle Eastern kind of a melody to it. So you want it to sound as if it's like, it's got really, really a lot of ambience to it. So let's pull up, and in fact, so this is a quarter note delay, so you want it to be a slightly longer, slightly slower delay lah. There we go, right? Very, very good. So it probably needs just a touch of de-esser, just another simple touch, okay? So same thing, let's go with the wide band setting. Okay, very cool. So now, previously in with Chita with the rap vocals, I added a little bit of the meta tune, the doubler. Some parts are probably need to cut it out. Like for example, I think coming out here. Anak di rumah mati kelaparan, yang dikejar tinggal bayangan, yang digendong gugur berciciran. Berapa kali ku pesan, berapa banyak kau mampu. Yeah, right? Or maybe, we'll see how, right? So maybe I need to automate the doublet settings to sort of reduce, bring it up again, okay? Especially when the music dynamically builds as well. So I need to, right, select and just to automate that setting. Okay, so there is also, technically this is like a high backing vocal. So with this, I'll usually keep this very simple, right? Let's go with the same vocal chain, right, with the parallel EQ. Okay, let's solo this. So with this layers, we usually don't. Okay, we can filter out all the bottom end and a bit of the top end. So let's take out, the honky frequency. Take out that 2K range, right? So it will sit a little bit behind, right, the main vocal. So let's drop it in and see. Very cool. Okay, so let's check it out from the top. Let's pull this over. Let's have the same. Now, I feel like we probably need to bring in a little bit of this reverb. Let's activate it. Nice. Okay, very, very nice. Now, in fact, I'm probably need to automate this a little bit and probably make it a little darker here. Mari kita hadamkan, hafalkan. Sebuah nokta aku sajikan. Okay, let's automate this. So this intro section needs to be a little bit softer. Let's bring this. Apa yang kita lihat hanya imbasan. Tak sama seperti apa yang disampaikan. Yeah, about 6 dB. It's meant to be in the background.
Kita hadamkan, hafalkan. Sebuah noktah aku sajikan. Terungkai sang cita keluar dari gua, meluaskan minda melunaskan.
Very cool. Okay, now let's bring in this violin, right? This one that comes in the intro. This is actually the riff.
Yeah.
So same thing, right? I have the chain for strings. Okay, so right, this one, a bit of 2K, that region, okay. Very cool. So it's going over to the strings, and now this would layer into the.
Yeah. Apa yang kita lihat hanya imbasan, tak sama seperti apa yang disampaikan.
Now, in fact, the sample effects now, let me try and experiment and try and flip around the relationship, because I had the sample up front and all these instruments kind of supporting it. Let me try and flip it around and see how it would work, okay? Let's play around with this.
Mari kita hadamkan.
It's a bit clearer.
Sebuah noktah aku sajikan. Terungkai sang cita keluar dari gua, meluaskan minda melunaskan lisan kata. Jangan resah, ini tak berbisa, cuma menusuk ke dalam jiwa. Menahan nafsu di bumi yang nyata, merentasi haluan tanpa peta. Dari kegelapan alam mata, lajak ke pelosok bercahaya. Berapa ramai lagi yang harus
Interesting, right? So I'm going to explore this relationship instead, okay?
Terungkai sang cita keluar dari gua, meluaskan minda melunaskan lisan kata. Jangan resah.
It's a little clearer.
Jangan resah, ini tak berbisa, cuma menusuk ke dalam jiwa. Menahan nafsu di bumi
Bring in
yang
the sample.
nyata, merentasi haluan tanpa peta. Pelosok bercahaya. Berapa ramai lagi yang harus pergi?
Interesting.
Berapa kali harus kini mengundur diri? Keganasan yang dilakukan tidak terhenti.
Let's bring it a little bit more.
Kembali dari lubuk hati.
Just brought up the peak, the little bit more compression on the horns, on the trombone.
Coretan situasi kini menjadi saksi. Umpama singa mengaum tanpa reaksi. Spekulasi, imajinasi tanpa penghuni. Kawal berdilam mengawal seteru sampai mati. Genggam cemas.
Right, okay. Let's automate this.
Pembalasan dikembali dari lubuk hati. Coretan situasi kini menjadi saksi. Umpama singa mengaum tanpa reaksi. Spekulasi, imajinasi tanpa penghuni.
Alright, okay. So when you get to the mengaum, I would probably bring it down about 2.5. Right? 2.5 dB. And when it kicks back in, let's see. We'll start at this level first.
Penghuni kawal berdilam mengawal seteru sampai mati. Genggam cemas rimas menyaksikan lautan yang luas.
So about 1 dB first, okay? Because when the music drops out, right? Okay, and obviously the claps and the hi-hats will need to come down.
Lemas andai tak pantas, ajalkan tiba.
Actually, I probably can leave it at all the way up at 1, I think.
Tanpa reaksi, spekulasi, imajinasi tanpa penghuni. Kawal berdilam mengawal seteru sampai mati. Genggam cemas rimas menyaksikan lautan yang luas.
Yeah, I mean, definitely some of the claps and all that will need to automate down.
Ajalkan tiba dengan sekilas, sebaik mana pedang pun tetap dewa.
Alright, there we go. Okay, so let's bring in a little bit more of the other instruments. So we get to the pre-chorus, there are these hand drums.
Terus sampai mati. Genggam cemas rimas menyaksikan laut.
Okay, very cool. Right, let's listen to this. Very cool. All right. Right, with this, we want to sort of, again, bring out a little bit more detail, right? The attack, the percussiveness, and all the individual hits. And MV2 is, again, a very, very powerful tool for doing this. Okay, let's bring this up. Okay. So the low-level compression, they call it low-level compression, is bringing up all the softer, the quieter elements and really, really like squeezing it out, you see, bringing out a little bit more life, a bit more excitement and everything. Right, see, so a lot more detail, and let's add in some of that reverb that we had earlier. Yeah, so still need to automate the claps, the snare, and the hi-hat, but it makes more sense right now. Let's go with this timpani. This timpani, again, I think can go to the string group because, again, it's part of the orchestra. Yeah, okay, interesting. I like how I just kind of flipped away that relationship. It makes things a little clearer actually. So now the sample is underneath, right, instead of being above. So let's bring in this Arabic vocal. Right. Okay, very cool. This already has got some effects in it. In fact, it's got this little you can hear that it's being cut like a loop. Very cool. Okay, there's one thing at 3K. Okay, there's this 1K that kind of lingers on a little bit. I want to get rid of that. And there you go. And in fact, we can play around with a little bit more effects as well. And what I want to do is, again, let's explore that same plugin which I had earlier, which is Tails, right? This is their new reverb plugin. I want to go with the shimmer. Let's check out how shimmer would sound like, okay? Woo, okay, right. So this is being transposed up. Let's transpose it up 12 steps. So this will be an octave above, I suppose. Very cool. Listen to it. Oh, let's try an octave below. Ooh, this is better. It's a little bit even more misty. This is even more mysterious. I love this plugin, man. It's awesome. Okay, let's blend it in.
Sebuah nokta aku sajikan. Terungkai sang cita keluar dari gua, meluaskan minda melunaskan lisan kata. Jangan resah, ini tak berbisa, cuma menusuk ke dalam
Almost
jiwa.
there. Very, very cool. Okay, cool. Let's go back to, let's introduce some of the other instruments, okay? Now, one thing about, right, MixStream and tonight's live stream, this is would usually be by the time I'm done with the episode at the end, this would be my first pass. I would call this like the first draft of the mix. Now, obviously, there are a lot more things which you won't be able to see, such as all the automation moves. I do some rough automation, but these are just the broad strokes that I'm taking you through. Okay, there's usually a lot more stuff that happens, right? Fine tuning here and there, automating stuff here, automating one little part, maybe playing around with some effects later on as well. But if I were to show every single thing, that would take way too long. Okay, that's gonna like take like 4 or 5 hours just to show everything, and usually, right, nobody's gonna want to stay and watch that long, lah. Okay, so but at least I walk you through right some of the main steps, right, tackling the drums, tackling the bass, tackling the vocal, the approach that I'm thinking and using, and give you a behind the scenes look and peek at how a mix is being done. So let's go now with the next thing. So there is this little flute. Let's just bring this in. And it sounds good. Again, already sounds good on its own. Let me just send this also to the string, the orchestra group, so to speak. And this one will, again, MV2 is great for anything like this. Even string instruments, especially plucking, it brings out all the detail and it evens out everything. So MV2, let's help to bring out all the softer articulations lah. Very interesting. Okay, that's cool. Let's bring this in.
Mengawal seteru sampai mati. Genggam cemas rimas menyaksikan lautan yang luas. Lemas andai tak pantas ajalkan tiba dengan sekilas sebaik mana.
Okay, right. This is just going there to add a little bit of rhythmic interest. I'll probably put this. Let's put it on this left hand side. Okay, right. I know what I'll do. So I'll play around with this. Probably have it pan left, right, left, right. In fact, let's just do it right now, okay? So there we go, right? So I'm gonna have it kind of subtly dance around at the back just to give it a little bit of sonic interest lah, so to speak. Okay, so this will go here at about 75. And I'll have this one over here also at about 75. And we'll repeat this, right, with the next thing. Same thing. This goes to 75 and oops, okay. Let's just need to drag this over here. Okay, cool. So again, these are things that just pop up in my head, and let's give it a try. Let's play around with it, okay? This little line here. Alright, okay. Okay, this is because this is a short phrase. I keep this one, I keep these two to the right. And okay, rinse and repeat. A few more lines here. So this flute will kind of, yeah, dance around at the background, left, right, like this little cheeky You know, like this little cheeky cherub or this little leprechaun that's that's running around in the background. You're trying to catch him. Well, that's the imagery that goes around in my head anyway. Replace leprechaun with, the appropriate mythical creature in Southeast Asian folklore, lah, right? Because definitely no leprechauns here in Malaysia and Singapore. Okay, let's do the same thing and keep going, and that would be the last one. So I might, in the end, again, I might just not do this. I might just throw this away, but it's worth trying. Okay, because following the gut instincts, following what it feels like it needs to do. Obviously here, again, the clap and the snare, hi-hats need to come down. In fact, we can do that very easily because I think this is all bussed into, it's all bussed into the drum bus. So let's do that right now. Okay, 3, ready, 1, 2. Okay, all right, so about 4.5 dB, maybe about 4 dB, right? I think individually I still need to tweak probably the clap. The snare actually. There you go, that makes more sense. Okay, then when it kicks back in, that's where we go back into full range. Okay, let's go. Now this synth line. Let's listen to this. So this synth is... Alright, very straightforward. It's kind of a video game. Very, very video gamey kind of a... reminds me of those RPG games. Very cool. It's got a bit of this detuning thing going on. Okay, now, so what this synth needs, I need to push it a little bit to the side because now it's a little bit too centered. So I need to use a sort of a stereo imager to push it slightly away to the side so that it doesn't get into the way of, at the moment, because it's getting into the way of the vocal. So ozone imager, this is where this will come very much in handy. Let's just use the normal width to try and push it to the side. Okay, stereoize it a bit. Let's listen. Right, even the hand drums, the tabla can come down a little bit now, just about a dB. Very cool, alright? So at least I pushed everything a little bit to the side, gives the vocal that space. Okay, let's go. This next violin part. This is the Yeah, this is this fast ostinato part. So same treatment. Let's put in the strings. Let's find the right. Okay, 3.5K. Let's get rid of that. There we go. Let's bring it in.
Mati kelaparan, yang dikejar tinggal bayangan, yang digen ciran. Berapa kali ku penjuru menuju air di hutan disusukan, anak di rumah mati kelaparan, yang dikejar tinggal bayangan, yang digendong gugur berciciran. Berapa kali ku pesan.
Right, okay, so these strings. Okay, just dip a little bit at 3K. Yeah, just to give it a little bit of that space, okay? And where are we? So Gamelan comes in here at the second verse. Okay, so this is pretty low. We don't need all that super bottom end. And again, you guess it, man. You know what I'm gonna pull up. MV2 again. This is really a problem-solving plugin, really good plugin. If there's like one Waves plugin that you definitely need to get, I would argue MV2 would probably be like in the top 3, in the top 3 list of plugins to buy. Okay, so whenever Waves has a sale, which is like always, go and get the MV2 especially if you get a good deal on it. Okay, so. Okay, cool. So here the gamelan has got a little bit of dissonance in it. In fact, I would argue, okay, and this is maybe an important thing to talk about whenever you're recording traditional instruments. Very often with some of the more modern stuff, right, modern instruments that we do with, we always try to dial in the sound to be a little bit more perfect. But with traditional instruments, sometimes because the way that they're made, they're handmade, there are imperfections here and there. It's not like it's being made by a machine or with precision tools or power tools or something like that. So you get these kind of characteristics. And sometimes you want these characteristics to be there. You don't want to filter them out. You don't want to cut them out, eliminate them out. And this is a lesson I learned actually, right, working with traditional musicians, mixing and recording them. Sometimes the wrong sound, it sounds wrong, right? The whatever sound that it's creating, which may sound off or bad, actually sounds right. Is the right sound. Do you get what I mean? Sometimes these traditional instruments, you get these weird resonances which can be dissonant or something like that, or is slightly out of tune or all that. But that is kind of where the beauty of having these traditional instruments are. And if you make it perfect, it sounds wrong. It just doesn't have the same vibe. Yeah, I would probably want to bring out a little bit of the air around it, and one great tool is revival. Just adds a little bit of a sheen. Okay, right. A little bit of automation because here he goes a little soft. Okay, all right. Let me edit this out. This little click here. Yeah, mouth clicks actually. Right.
Kiasan kata sikit pun tak faham. Selamkan dendam. Yeah. Matahari terbenam.
Very cool. Okay, so almost there, right? We have these strings, this last bit of string here. Actually, this is the same as the intro, right? Yeah, okay, so this is actually the same figure. We can just drop it in here, okay? Although it looks a little louder.
Pejamkan mata, hati terjunang. Berserah. Akal.
Right here, I might want this synth to be.
Tak faham. Selamkan dendam.
Yeah, okay, all right, I know. This has to be automated. The synth got to automate down here by just maybe 1 or 2 dB, just so I can give the gamelan the space to take up that melody lah.
Pasti akan karam. Kiasan kata sikit pun tak faham. Selamkan dendam.
There you go.
Yeah.
I want the gamelan to take that lead.
Hati terjunang.
And then last of all, this piano. Check it. Okay, and this is kind of just adding a bit of weight, low end weight actually. Yeah, it's just this low piano note. Super simple. Doesn't really need much. Okay, just taking out the extreme bottom. Just taking out the extreme bottom end.
Lebih baik berserah. Akal. Berserah. Akal.
Okay, let's listen to this piano.
Menuju ajal. Lebih baik berserah.
Can be a bit louder even.
Menuju ajal. Lebih baik berserah. Akal. Penjuru menuju ajal.
There we go. Okay, so we don't need this track. We can sort of remove this. Okay, let me just label this. Okay, so this would be actually more of the contrabasses. Contrabasses. This one would be violin ostinato, because it's playing the repeated. That should be an ostinato actually. And this is the main string riff lah, so to speak. Okay, yeah. So that helps with the track management. So there we go. That's pretty much it. All right. So it's a good time as well. It's coming up right to 12 o'clock. So this is kind of the overall. I would consider this like the first draft of the mix. And hello, who's there? Hi, Butot. Thanks for joining in. Sorry I didn't see your message, man. Butot Bass, man. Hi, how you doing? Hopefully you're gonna enjoying a good holiday, long weekend as well. Enjoying Hari Raya over there. Good to see you, man. And hopefully now with everything coming up, hopefully things are gonna open back again. Thanks for joining, Butot. Okay, nice to see you. Even though it's late and we're about to wrap this up already. So there you go. You've got, this is the overall mix process. I would consider this as the first draft. All the automation works that I've done, it's kind of the broad strokes of the track. I would go in and build and probably do all those fine tuning automation moves later on. It's a good time anyway, like kind of 2-3 hours into the mix to take a little bit of an ear break. All right, then come back, either come back later or probably in this case I'll come back right tomorrow in the morning or afternoon. Okay, fresh to fine tune all the stuff. But this is probably about 70 to 80% there, right? Because all the main rhythm instruments, the main vocals, everything is kind of already there already. So there you have it. Okay, well, let's listen to this one more time. But before we wrap it up, okay, thank you once again for watching. Hopefully you found this useful and informative. Please do leave a like and do share this with your friends if you can. And if you're not yet a subscriber, please do click on the subscribe button, okay? Don't forget, if you want to help to support the channel, check out the Patreon page, how you can become a VIP patron, okay? There are a lot of special perks and benefits for you. And for every one of you out there, all our friends, right? All our Muslim friends who are going to be celebrating Eid or Aidilfitri or however you may call it. I can't pronounce it in the proper Arabic way. In Malaysia, we just call it Selamat Hari Raya Aidilfitri lah. Okay. Happy holidays, right, to all you folks out there. Stay safe, stay happy and healthy. Happy recording and mixing, all right. Eat all the ketupat, all the rendang, and all this and everything. All right. I'll see you all again in the video real soon. Stay safe, right, and take care. Let's listen right to the first draft of Akal by Chita featuring Shahyr. Here we go. Hey, hi man. Najib says it's getting exciting just listening to it. Thanks, bro. Right. Sorry for some of the awkward spaces in between. Right, I take a super urgent phone call, and then that was one phone call from a real person, human, and another one was the call of nature. I tak tahu lah what did I eat earlier today. I actually like been to the toilet a few times already. So, oh boy. So there you go. Nice, okay. Right. I've also switched over to a smaller pair of speakers and a sense to try and listen to how it feels. Right? Yeah, they want CPU glitching already. Need to freeze some tracks. So after the mix is ready, right, what we usually do, right, for those who may not know, there will still be a back and forth. Communication is very important with the client. So we send the track over, I'll send the mix over, and then we see whether there are any tweaks, right, that they may want, right, that either Chita or Shahyr may want, or maybe wants, right, from the label they may want to make some tweaks and changes here. That's perfectly normal. That's what we do, okay? We go a little bit back and forth until we get a result that everyone is happy with, then we finalize, and then you get the final result and you get to hear it, okay? So this is a sneak peek, alright, of the track. Please go and follow, right, check out, right, Chita, check out Shahyr, right, I will update in the description, right, the description you will see down below. If I have not updated it, I will update it real soon. So follow the artists, stay tuned to what they have in store, okay, right, very cool. And back to the pre-chorus. I will definitely also send this over to Uno, right, and AJ for them to take a lesson. So maybe they may have some feedback of their own, what stuff that they want to add. Feels like maybe like the riser effects probably could happen again coming into the second verse, and maybe the very last chorus probably. Very interesting song arrangement actually. It's not exactly a pop song formula structure, right? It's more like an ABC structure. And again, music has no rules, man. Okay. Awesome performance by Chita and Shahyr. Last chorus. Probably all these ad-libs add some delays, right? To just give it a little bit more space, a little more exciting. Maybe even like filter it out to give it a little bit more radio effect, a little bit of distortion. And here we go. Nice little wind down. So there we go. Take care and see you soon, right? Stay safe. Happy recording, mixing. Peace, love, and music. Out.